So I want to just roll back a little bit and just share with you. So that's my thesis. And so I was trying to figure out what the order for this presentation should be. And I would ask you at this point, if I were you, I'd say, well, what does he know about this? And so let me just share a few things on my early experiences in project management. So in working in Wall Street on trading rooms, in talking to someone, one of my clients, I said to him, what kind of business do you do in this room? It was a computer room. And he said they processed millions of dollars of transactions a second. And so in those kinds of projects, speed and quality were the drivers. It was much less about low bid, tough negotiation. It was much more about, can you do the work? Do you have the expertise? And it really required you to collaborate closely with the owner and the owner's vendors, the computer people and other people, to pull these projects off and to make them successful. And the same thing with high-end residential. The quality was the driver in those high-end residential projects that we were involved in. And so scope and budget and timelines were more fluid. It was more about quality. And again, collaboration with the owner was the key. So Agile is popping up in my world in the 1980s in these kinds of projects. And so again, like I said, I think I was doing Agile before Agile was cool. We were doing Agile for all of these projects. And frankly, we needed an approach where scope and quality were the primary drivers and not necessarily negotiating for the cheapest, fastest project, which inevitably, as you know, because you're all project managers, often have failure. In the same way with my, in my early career, I had some experiences with strategic management. And companies in the 80s, when you did this low bid work, there were often misaligned incentives, right? So there was an us and them kind of mentality, the owners and the contractors, or the owners and the developers. And this misalignment of incentives led to disputes and failures, and many projects never got built. And if you've taken a project management course, you know that in the federal government, the federal government is the land of dead projects and failed projects. Billions of dollars of projects that were unfinished and wasted because the owners and the developers never really aligned their interests. And so I saw that as a problem. I also saw that as an opportunity. And when I launched my business in about 1988, my company specialized in medical design build. I picked a complicated niche that required the things that we talked about 1 or 2 slides ago: a focus on quality, a focus on scope, and a focus on timeline. It's less about budget and it's more about quality and timeline. And why is that? Well, in the medical design build business, particularly in the area that I worked in, I did a lot of medical imaging center kinds of projects. The medical equipment that I was responsible to install, I didn't buy it, but the physicians groups did, was worth millions of dollars, $4, $5, or $6 million. And my part of getting those pieces of equipment installed was maybe a $750,000 to $1.5 million. So relatively speaking, the most important thing for these physicians was to get the equipment in, to get it installed by someone who knew what they were doing, to turn it over to them on time so that they could get the equipment rolling, so they could start to be able to pay the bills, to pay the note on the multi-million-dollar debt that they took on with this equipment. So cost and experience and time in my business, in this business, were the #1 priorities. We closely partnered with our customers, very much of an Agile principle. The results spoke for themselves. We had increased on time and on budget results. And frankly, as a business person, our margins were higher than the rest of the industry and among the competition. And so, frankly, my business needed to move as quickly as my projects were moving. And increasingly, what I did was I applied my Agile principles to my business and ran my business that way. So very Agile, very flexible, partnering with customers, opening up my books to the customers, integrating information systems with the customers, customer focus. Customer was always #1. And that's the way that worked for me in my business.